come on, if you want to hit me, then hit me. Oh, you are a terrible shot. Hello everyone, welcome back to another episode of Minecraft The Journey with me, bugmancx, and we're currently here in Minecraft Beta 1.5, which we've been playing for a little while now, and I just realized something. This is episode 90. We've had nearly 100 episodes of Minecraft The Journey, and that is absolutely amazing. And in between episodes, I have been busy, as you can see. The log factory is restored. It's a good thing that I keep world backups because I was able to load up an old copy of the world and use it as a reference point to make sure that I got all of the details back exactly as they were before. And it's pretty close now. If you go on inside, you can see everything has been restored. The office is back. The interior walls are back. I had to redo all of this up here and all of that up there and everything. So I'm really pleased that this is now back to normal. Oh, yeah, as you can see, I had to plant a lot of trees because I had to farm a lot of wood to get that done. But it is done, and that's great. Now, in today's episode, we're getting close to the end of Minecraft Beta 1.5. There are a couple of little things that we need to explore before we get to the end, and what I like to do when we do get close to the end is have a look at the changelog to see what's changed between Beta 1.5 and Beta 1.6, because usually there are a lot of bug fixes and things like that that are mentioned on the Beta 1.6 release notes that we don't know about in Beta 1.5 or haven't experienced in Beta 1.5. So I'd like to have a bit of a look at that, and I'm going to plan out which of those issues we're going to take a look at before we get to the end. We're also going to have a look at a list of a few things that I just haven't got around to looking at in Beta 1.5 before we get ready for our upgrade. There were a couple of minor texture changes made to Beta 1.5. Remember the old crying obsidian? The block that was never actually implemented into the game? Well, its texture's now been removed, and it's been replaced with this. And what's this, you might be wondering? Well, it's the side of the grassy block, but it's only the grassy part of the block. And the reason for that is because when you have a grass block, the grass texture will change depending on which biome you're in. This is the biome tinting. But it only applied to the top of the block. And now with this extra texture, the game's now able to apply that same tinting to the grassy part of the side of the block. Speaking of textures, when the spider was originally added during survival test, Notch entertained the idea that spiders would be able to produce web tiles, and a texture for this was added into the game's files, but never used because the feature Notch described never got implemented. This cobweb texture remained in the game's files unused until Beta 1.5, where it was changed slightly to make it have a more string-like appearance. This is how the two look compared to each other. This change was probably made because the devs had plans to finally add the cobweb to the game, and it was implemented into Beta 1.5 as a brand new block, but there was no way to obtain it in survival, yet. But since it's here, why not take a quick look anyway? We're going to take a proper look at these when they get fully implemented into a future update, but things change, things get tweaked, so let's have a look at how they work as of Beta 1.5. I mentioned before that the cobwebs are currently unobtainable in survival Minecraft, but by modifying your inventory outside of the game, I'm able to put them into my inventory like this. Now normally I try and avoid doing this, but sometimes it is useful, especially when we want to see something that's not currently obtainable within the game, just like the cobweb. Now the first thing that I'm noticing is that it doesn't actually have a name. When I put my mouse over it like this, there's no tooltip, just like we get for all of the other items in our inventory. And that's curious because I've never seen that before, at least not since they were added to the game. And usually when a description is missing, it causes the game to crash, so at least that's working now. But look, we have them now, and here's one on the ground, and it looks like a cobweb. So let's see what happens when we place them on the ground. Yeah, they look just like what we expect them to look like in the more modern versions of the game, but do they behave the same way? Let's see what happens if I get inside of one. It slows me down. So that's interesting. All of the mechanics for these blocks has been added into the game's code, but you just can't get them yet. So if I place one here at head height and go inside of it, ooh, what happens here? Well, I'm stuck inside of the block. Now I did read in the notes that if I'm inside of one of these blocks in this version, I'll take suffocation damage, but I don't appear to be taking suffocation damage. Maybe I should just wait in the block and see what happens. But no, nothing's really happening, is it? Maybe I have to do this slightly differently? Ugh. Maybe it's because it needs to be like this with a gap? I don't know. Let's go inside and find out. Nope. Nothing. Well, that was fun. Now, let's see what happens when we break these, because as we know, in the current versions of the game, cobweb drops string if you just break it. But in this version, we get the cobweb back. And look, this item, is it going through the cobweb or is it just sitting on top? I don't know. Let's throw my pick on top. Looks to me like that's just sitting on top of the block, but also slightly recessing into it. How interesting. So what happens if we use our sword? Again, we just get the cobweb back. So it looks like the dropping of string has not yet been implemented, but if it were possible to find these somewhere in the world in survival Minecraft, this would be a great way to collect them right now, because it's going to be a whole lot more difficult to get them in the future. Somehow, I didn't even notice that in the last clip, but these cobwebs do actually slow down the flow of the entities that are going through them. So if I place some down there, you can see that they are actually sinking through the cobweb slowly but surely. That is a pretty cool mechanic. I'm not sure what use it has in beta Minecraft at the moment, but it is cool. I thought that it might be interesting if we have a look at this with the original texture too. I'm sure it won't look too different, but this is what it would have looked like if the original texture had stayed in the game, and that just looks like a mess of white, really. So I think that the new texture really does help to make it feel like multiple cobwebs. You know, cutting down all these trees to rebuild this log factory has reminded me of something that I've wanted to talk about for ages, and it has to do with all of the trees around me and also the brand new sapling types. Although the new tree types were added in beta 1.2, you couldn't obtain the correct saplings from them until beta 1.5, and this has added an interesting side effect. Take a look at these saplings here. They look the same, right? But notice how they don't stack? There's something different between these two saplings which is preventing them from stacking, so let's take a look at what's going on. We've previously covered how the leaf variations work, and in beta 1.2, with the addition of the new trees, all of the trees in this area had their leaf types changed to different variations, and I think it's time we discuss exactly what's happening here. Before we do this, we need to recap on how some of the blocks which have different variations are stored within the game. This applies to blocks like the slabs and wool blocks, which each have a different texture variation or colour. Each block or item in the game has its own ID number, so taking wool for example, the block ID for that is 35. The game uses the damage value to specify which variation of that block to display, so for each block of wool, the default colour is white, and this is when there's no damage value set. Numbers 1 through 15 represents the variant wool colours, so for a yellow wool block, it's block ID 35 with a damage value of 4. When the two new tree types were added in beta 1.2, the damage value method was used to specify whether they were regular, spruce or birch, and this applies to saplings, wood blocks and leaves. Saplings are block ID 6, wood is 17 and leaves are block ID 18. Using the damage value method, we've now got two additional types. A block or item with no damage value is the default, a damage value of 1 is the spruce variation, and a damage value of 2 is for birch. The game won't stack the same item ID if the damage value is different, so do you see where this is going? The reason this sapling doesn't stack with the other is because it contains a different damage value. But how did it get it? To understand this, we need to figure out why all of the trees around me have mixed up leaf blocks, and to understand that, we need to go back and look at leaf decay. As I've covered before, leaf decay had been added and removed, written and rewritten several times over between indev and beta, and most of these methods use the damage value in some way to store information to calculate how the game should handle leaf decay for that particular block. This meant that prior to beta 1.2, thousands of leaf blocks in my world already had a damage value set in them because of the old leaf decay mechanics. So after beta 1.2, the game uses that value to work out which leaf block variation to display instead. As a result, we end up with all of these trees with a mixture of different leaf types. But what about the saplings? Well, whenever you break a leaf block, it has a chance of dropping a sapling, and if it does, it'll drop a sapling with a damage value that matches the leaf block to make sure it always gives you the correct type. But since the game's only using values 1 and 2 for spruce and birch, if a leaf block has an old damage value of 3, it'll drop a sapling with a damage value of 3 to match it. And because there's no texture for that, the game just uses the default sapling texture instead. So that's exactly what we have here, a sapling variation type 3, which theoretically shouldn't exist. Having done a lot of work in this area, I have already amassed a small collection of these saplings, but then I found something a little bit strange. So these saplings here are 13 saplings with the damage value of 3, because there are many trees out here which have that damage value which has been set, and so it stands to reason that I'd have many saplings drop with a damage value of 3. And then there's this one, and this one doesn't stack on here, and you may be thinking, well, that's because it's the normal default sapling type without a damage value. But you'd be wrong, because there is a difference between damage 0 and no damage value set at all, or damage null. And the difference is that if your damage value is set to 0, then that is a different sapling type to the default sapling, which doesn't have a damage value. I hope I'm making sense here, but essentially, if it's the default sapling type, there is no damage value set in the NBT data, but if you specify the damage value to be 0, then the game treats that as a different thing altogether. And that's what this sapling here is. It's a sapling with a damage value of 0. And I didn't know it was possible to obtain these because I didn't know that any of the leaf blocks out here could actually hold a damage value of 0. So I don't have an explanation for how I got this extra sapling, but we're going to put these away inside of the chest in the log factory so that we keep them for safekeeping, because in the future we want to see what happens to these, because I'm sure that they will cause a problem down the road, or textures won't render correctly or something like that. Some of you probably already know what's going to happen to each of these saplings because a lot of you have already played the game and done these upgrades, so you all often know what's going on even before I do. So we'll wait and see what happens to those in the future, but I thought that was a fun little part of Minecraft's history to explore. Well, I think it's about time that we do a version upgrade. We're currently on Minecraft Beta 1.5, and like with many of these beta era releases, there was an _01 release, and it was released the next day following the Beta 1.5 release, and it contains mainly bug fixes. One of those is around the pumpkin here, so I've got 3 pumpkins. We're going to turn one of them into a jack-o'-lantern, because you may have noticed that the jack-o'-lantern texture is exactly the same as the pumpkin texture, but I don't think it actually is. So you see, what's happening here is that these textures are all being rendered backwards. So I have a feeling that if you were to spin this around, it would have the proper jack-o'-lantern face on it, and these pumpkins would actually have the pumpkin face. So I can't put this on my head, can I? Because it's a jack-o'-lantern, but I can put this one on, as we've seen before, and yeah, now I am wearing a pumpkin, and I'm wearing it backwards. So we're going to wear this while we do our upgrade to 1.5_01 and see what happens to my face, or the back of my head, kind of. Yeah. Aha, look at that. We appear to be wearing the pumpkin the correct way around, and if I get out of F5 mode here, we can still see through it just like we would expect to. And inside of the inventory, yes, look at that. It's showing up the correct way, and look at these two as well. These two textures are now showing the right way around. So I can finally get this thing off of my head and go and put those things back in the garden where they belong. But we made it to beta 1.5_01, and I did mention that beta 1.5_01 was released the day after beta 1.5, and there was also a second update, beta 1.5_02, although it was a server-side upgrade, so there was actually no beta 1.5_02 client release. So this is the only interim upgrade step for us between now and beta 1.6. So let's have a look at some of the changes. One of the first things that stuck out to me from the beta 1.6 patch notes was that Notch had said, fixed dying in the nether spawning new portals. So what does that mean? Does that mean if we go through to the nether and then just die, it'll create a portal? I'm keen to find out what exactly this means. So I wonder... Yeah, it's been very quiet in here lately. I don't know what has happened to all of the ghasts. There's definitely some out there, I can hear one. but there used to be a lot more than this, and I don't know where they've all gone. Let me see if I can find one, and we'll see if we can get it to shoot at us. Well, this is bizarrely quiet. Look over there, there are all of those frozen ghasts. I've seen this before, but there are no ghasts in the local vicinity, and this place used to be heaving with ghasts. I'm actually curious now to head out here and see if we can discover what's going on with those ghasts over there, because it's never been so quiet. Oh, that's deadly. How can I do this without dying? Oh, they all just disappeared, right? Yeah, I've managed to make myself down here onto the ground. Oh, I don't want to die just yet. We've got a second experiment to explore. I want to see what happens to all those ghasts. And just as I suspected, they all disappeared. So they were probably just phantom ghasts. Now, where am I being fired on from? Ah, okay. Oh, it's up here somewhere. Where is it? Ah, you're here. Okay, I'm ready for you, ghast. Fireball me. You're not a very good shot. Oh no. Ooh, I don't want to fall into the lava because that'll just create a portal in the lava pit, assuming this works the way that I suspect. Okay, come on. Here I am. You are terrible. Come on. Finally. Well, I don't see a portal, but let's see if we can get back here and see what's going on. Well, right down there is where I died, and I don't see evidence of any nether portal or anything like that, so I don't really know what's going on with that. I don't know what that means. Fixed dying in the nether, spawning new portals. No idea. If anybody does know, then feel free to let me know in the comments. I would be very curious, but I don't think we'll have a chance to discover what that is before we get to upgrade to beta 1.6. Here's one that I've been keen to try out for a while, and I'm not even sure if it'll work, but the bug is described as system clock messing up game speed, and my understanding of this is that if I have the game running just as I do right now, and my system clock time changes, that will interfere with the game in some way and cause it to go a little bit wild. So I have got my inventory up here, and I'm going to flip over here and change the time and increase the time on the clock by 1 hour and see what happens in game. Oh, wow, look at that. It's really messed up. Everything's going super fast. I'm going super fast. The clouds are going mad. Look at those entities. The chicken. Oh my God. Wow. And that's only one day that's passed. Oh my goodness me. This one is a fun one. Can I actually... Oh. I can move around. And that was just by changing the clock by an hour. Wow. How much fun can we have with this? I mean, I need to see what happens to one of my farms. I'm down here by the skeleton farm, and this is one which I am really curious to see how this bug will affect. So let me just change the date and time here. I'm going to just flip the date forward by 1 day and see what happens. Okay, and back in the game. Oh, wow. Look at them zipping around there. Is zipping up the elevator, and oh, wow, look at the drops. Okay, let's see if I can... Oh, what? You just move so fast. It's very difficult. You kind of have to just navigate your way around from wall to wall. Okay, let's have a look inside of the spawner. Can I... Oh, I can do it with shift a little bit. All right, there we go. Look at him go. That's an unbelievable amount. And it doesn't seem to last very long. After about 20 seconds, it seems to go back to normal. We do have quite a few skeletons in here, though. It is an interesting way of farming for items in a relatively quick amount of time, but it's highly inconvenient. It's quite disruptive to your system, changing the date and time. It's not very healthy for it. But, you know, I do it for the sake of experiments. I do it so that you don't have to. Well, we're almost at the end of the episode and almost at the end of our Minecraft Beta 1.5 journey. This is also one of the last times that you'll be able to see my face do this with that weird glasses quirk where the glasses push their way up onto my nose, because apparently that gets fixed in Minecraft Beta 1.6 as well. So, I'm going to miss that little feature. Oh well. And if you aren't subscribed to this channel, then please make sure to click the subscribe button and click the bell so that you get notified every time I upload, because in the next episode, when we upgrade to Beta 1.6, you don't want to miss that. There's going to be some interesting stuff we're going to be exploring. There's a little release in between that is quite interesting that we're going to explore, so make sure you subscribe to see all of that. I want to say thank you for watching this episode, and an extra special thank you to my patrons for supporting me, and I will see you in the next episode. Until then, this has been bugmancx. You've been watching Minecraft The Journey. Bye-bye.